Fan fiction. I started reading it when I was a teenager, and the first fan community there was a part of, or fandom, if you will, I'm sure you will, there was a part of was the Harry Potter one, and obviously the internet was a thing, so I remember looking it up online, and I found a Swedish Harry Potter website that I joined, and on the message boards there, they even had a specific section for stories. So a lot of my peers were writing stories, and I read them, and I liked a lot of general adventure fic with the trio, you know, Harry, Ron, and Hermione being out and gallivanting about, but it was also very popular to write love stories, and a popular pairing right then and there, at least, was Ron and Hermione, because a lot of people wanted to see the two of them get together at some point during the series. Lucky them. But one day I discovered that somebody had written Harry and Draco together, and I touched on this in another video of mine, and me finding that pairing, and I can link it in the video description if you haven't seen it and you're interested. But I remember being, you know, very skeptical and instantly frowning at my monitor and thinking, that makes no sense, they hate each other. But I thought pretty much at once that if the two of them could learn to love one another, it would be a love story of epic proportions. You know, I really romanticized that. I really thought that, you know, that the harder you had to struggle, or the harder you were willing to struggle, the truer the love was, or something like that. And I thought the fact that they were both boys added to the struggle and made me kind of blush and giggle a bit. And so I also thought that it was kind of this opposites attract kind of situation, that if they could overcome their rivalry and hatred and different backgrounds, how sweet it would be, you know. And I thought that it could make sense in that kind of way if you wanted it to. And I also learned that it was called slash when I wanted two male characters to be together, and it tickled me so much that from that moment on I pretty much exclusively read slash. And I branched out eventually from the Swedish website because I noticed that English fanfiction was easier to come by, and just the sheer amount of it was, you know, breathtaking. Instead of sticking around on this one tiny Swedish Harry Potter website, you know, on the message boards. And the Swedish one was a very strict one, though. It's family friendly, so it could be strict to the extreme sometimes. So when I branched out and started reading English stuff, I also wasn't limited by the rating, you know. So I went out and I experimented by reading more sexually explicit stuff, which I think is natural at that age. I think just you explore sexuality in various ways, and that reading and even writing could be a part of that. And not even necessarily like your own, but just sexuality in general. And therefore, I am living proof that that's a part of it, that teenage girls, what I was, you know, a teenage girl was, can sit around and read what is basically gay erotica. But obviously that's not all there is to it. I want to start out when I've been talking for ages already, but start out by saying that people of all variety both read and write fanfiction. And I can't stress that enough. That is really true, and that includes age, it includes gender, it includes anything you can think of. But I feel like mainstream media also has they really have a way of portraying in this way, in this light. Like, for example, I'm almost seeing a trend that they'll have an actor on a talk show or somewhat, and the host will go, the fans really, really like your character, and they want to see your character get together with your co-star's character. Did you know that people write stories about this? Here, you know, we have an excerpt, and what they have all the time, I feel like, is what I can only describe as, you know, poorly written gay smut by a 13-year-old girl, you know. And obviously, like I say, I'm proof that that's a part of it, but it's not all there is. And I have cat hair in my mouth. That's life when you live with cats. You're just plucking cat hair from everything, and you're like, huh, okay, cat hair. It's like I say, people of all variety read and write fan fiction, and then sometimes people can say that you're a bad writer when you write fan fiction, and that makes no sense. So then, if nothing else, if not language-wise, if they can think that it's well written, sometimes people would think that, well, you're still a bad writer because you have to steal someone else's world. I personally think it's perfectly totally okay to borrow a universe that already exists. You know, as long as you make a disclaimer saying that you don't own it, then you don't get yourself like creating an illegal trouble. But just because you take, you know, an inspiration from, like, you borrow a world that already exists, a universe that somebody else made up, just because you have this foundation that you build on top of, you know, doesn't mean. I have personally read in my day, you know, fan fiction that has been better both in the way it's written and the plot and everything, you know, with compared to some original books that have been published. And just because you have something, a foundation that you build on top of, doesn't mean, like, I have read stuff that has been so imaginative and so creative and really touching, and people can be super creative, and what they build on top of that foundation, like the base that they have from the world that they take from, and the characters they include in their stories, doesn't mean that it can't be original, everything else. And I feel like just the whole thing of, it's kind of like looking at a stick figure drawn by a 3-year-old, and you know, that's art, but it's not the sole definition of what art is. A lot of people think of really famous paintings we have in museums. You know, like that's the go-to thing that they think when they hear art. Or you can think of art collectors that will pay like billions and millions of whatever currency to buy famous artwork, you know, but that still doesn't mean that the stick figure drawn by a 3-year-old is an art, and writing is an art form. It's just that there's so many levels and layers to it that you can't really pinpoint this one thing and claim that that's what it is. But like I say, I'm proof that could be a part of it. And, you know, fan culture and fan fiction, everything. It is a bit complicated, and it's a bit, you know, it does have many levels and layers. But I just get a little bit frustrated, you know, that people think that's very. Just the idea that things have an age limit is, to me, ridiculous. Things don't, but I feel like that has happened with other things in life too, that prime nerdy examples can really be, like, my go-to examples often are like when you collect action figures. People see you collecting toys or even playing with toys when you're just an adult collecting nerdy action figures. And even if you were to play with them, it doesn't matter. It's like people have they sometimes have trouble separating what is being immature and what is just being nerdy, silly, dorky, you know. I am very super nerdy, dorky, and even like silly in a childish way sometimes. But I can separate that, and I'm a 29-year-old, and I function quite well in my life and society. You know, I can be 29 when I want to be and when I need to be, and other times I can be super nerdy and silly, and people can think what I'm liking or what I'm doing is childish. But you know, there's certainly a difference there between being, you know, immature and like, you know, I get tired of defending fan fiction. I get tired of defending myself for liking fan fiction. It's not something that they have to do, or any of you have to do. Remember that you never have to justify yourself or even explain yourself for what you like or what you do. But sometimes, you know, you can be judged by, no matter what your reaction is, you know, their reaction, they can have a reaction. And I feel like people often do look down on fan fiction because, well, sometimes you can change their minds because they just don't understand. Other times they're really set in their ways. And I just do get tired of defending fan fiction and defending myself for reading it, especially now that there's a third layer to it, and that's the fact that I'm reading Harry Potter fan fiction. And sometimes people like Mother or my aunt, they can understand why Harry Potter as a thing meant a lot to me during my adolescence, when they see that the events I went to as a teenager and the things that I did, that I met friends that I still have today, that I've known for over a decade, they can understand the experiences that they're important, my Harry Potter experiences, you know. But the moment I start talking about the story itself or a character, they instantly think like, no, you're losing grip on reality, you know. It's like, well, maybe not that extreme, but you know, it's kind of that sense that you get, that people just think, which is crazy, I think, which is ironic. That's crazy. The word crazy is just can be a bad word though. It can be complicated. What means crazy? Same with normal. What's normal? But it, you know, and definitely that's what I feel like, that it is that stick figure, you know, and that's a part of it, but it's not all there is really. And I think that's mostly what I wanted to say. I think because it's been on my mind for a while. This whole thing that people look down on. But like I say, other nerd things that happens too. You can be watching anime, for example, as a prime example. People think that you're watching cartoons, meaning automatically that they are for kids, little kids. Or even reading comic books can be a very stereotype that people think that, hey, that's something that the little guys do. Little teenage boys do that. Why are you doing that? Something like that. You know, there are so many different. Let's not get too into it. I don't know. I just listen. People of all variety read and write fan fiction, and that's all there is. And I just wanted to share that with you because it drives me up a wall sometimes when people give me this little side eye or say something directly, because it is absolutely ridiculous. Because fanfiction is amazing and so creative and so good, and I think I'll end it there because I'm gonna feel like I missed a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, but I'm gonna have to stop somewhere, you know. So I'll stop it there for now. But I'll maybe expand on this topic later if I feel ever so inclined. Also, Harry Draco is my OTP for life, for sure. So